Hello, what's going on? This week, breaking down 10 games this week. 10 college football games. I pick out 10 games, and we're going to describe them. And when I say we, I mean I have a friend on the phone today that is going to help me describe them, and his name is Jay. So, we're going to start out. Well, let's get to the issues facing last week. Uh, Notre Dame Michigan game, incredible game. You gotta give props to Michigan. 3 touchdowns in the last minute, 12. I personally thought Notre Dame was overrated. But let's get to the games this week. Starting with tomorrow night's thriller, could be in Starksville, Mississippi State taking on LSU. Now, let's start Jay. Let's start with Mississippi State. Chris Relf and Vic Ballard, tough loss last week at Auburn.
Yeah, that last second drive, I really thought, the other time of the game, it's not a heartbreaking loss and a lucky win for Auburn, but,
Yeah, but they're returning home to Starksville. Relf, Ballard, they'll be back. But they are going to miss 2 key linemen tomorrow night, probably. Offensive lineman out for the game, who got hurt in the game against Auburn. Let's move to the side against LSU. Now, LSU came out strong beginning of the year and beat an Oregon team that, a very good Oregon team that had just gotten off a loss in the national title, and then they beat Northwestern State next week. Now people will say, oh, Oregon, they beat Oregon. They can beat Oregon on a neutral field, but nothing compares to a road game in the SEC.
I gotta go with LSU, just because of the win against Oregon was awesome. I know people say, okay, they won on turnovers.
A win's a win.
That LSU defense is one of the best in the country. Other than Alabama, I think it's the best in the country. Mississippi State will not be able to score, and the offense of LSU isn't too bad. Jordan Jefferson being out, Garrett Lee, the quarterback, I personally think he's a very good quarterback. Zach Mettenberger played in the entire second half of the game over Northwestern State, so don't be surprised if you see him.
Yeah. Mississippi State, they're coming off a tough loss, and I just don't think they'll be able to overcome it. That's why I'm taking LSU in this game.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're moving on to another SEC game, big SEC game this week in the Swamp. SEC on CBS, opener 3:30 on CBS. That will be Tennessee, the Volunteers, 2-0, heading into a game against 2-0 Florida. Now, Tennessee came out strong against Montana, and everybody picked them to get beat last week against Cincinnati, including me. Bray went off.
Oh, yeah.
And
mediocre Cincinnati team. They played great. The defense, not so much. So I'm gonna go with Tennessee in a close win over Florida. I don't think that Florida offense is big. I think Tyler Bray is just a great quarterback, being 6'8", great freshman year, looking at a better sophomore year.
And you're looking at a Florida team, but the Florida fans are like, oh, we're much improved. When you beat Florida Atlantic and UAB in the Swamp, that's not much improved. Those are 2 cupcakes.
Well, when saying improved, I don't know what they mean by that. They haven't gained anything. If anything, they've lost. The loss of Urban Meyer is huge.
And the loss of their 2 top corners, Will Black, and that's just tough on them. But I do think, because it's in the Swamp, Florida will rise to the occasion, and that's why I'm picking Florida on Saturday. Now moving on to a game that is a interconference matchup. Cross-conference matchup between a rematch of last year's overtime thriller in Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn taking on Clemson. Now, Auburn, of course, barely beat Utah State, and then barely beat Mississippi State on a goal line stand.
Well, I thought the win against Mississippi State was pretty impressive. Trotter, he's no Cam Newton, but he can get the job done. I'm going to go with Auburn. I just don't think Clemson is a very good team this year. Anyway.
Well, Auburn still has a solid running game with McCaleb and Dyer, and their defense is still solid as a rock, as they showed, but they still can't defend the pass. So
they couldn't do it last year, but they still managed to go 14-0 and win the national title. But I don't think that's going to get them hard this year. They have no Cam Newton, no Nick Fairley. I think they win this game, but once we hit SEC play for real, they're going to lose the game. But I'm going to go with Auburn.
But Clemson not looking very good last week against Wofford, barely winning against Wofford.
Yeah, that was I'm telling you, this Clemson team, I don't think they make a bowl game. I think this is pretty much what you would call a rebuild year. So Clemson fans, you're going to hate me for it, but you're going to lose a lot of games this year.
But Taj Boyd, he's got room to improve, but that room for improvement doesn't happen in one game, and that's why I'm going with the Auburn Tigers.
Probably not going to happen. Well, the ACC, I'm seeing unpredictable between two teams, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, moving on again. Now, this is a battle between two separate teams at this point. You got a 2-0 Michigan State team coming into this game, beating up on some easy opponents, but then you got Notre Dame, who's coming off losses to South Florida, Michigan late. Now, Kelly, it's been well documented that Kelly's got a short temper.
Yeah.
And
the thing I don't understand about him is that you have a great quarterback with and you start this other guy and you get demolished in the first half, and then you decide to put him in there. That makes no sense to me. I know that's the reason they lost, pretty much in all the turnovers, but they held their own against Michigan. I did not expect them to do that. I expected that game to be blowout, honestly. And, they really held their own. I'm going to go with Michigan State in this game by 14 plus.
Well, my wonder is how long they're going to be talking about this until they go for Kelly's head coach. Because I know because they were all saying how last year Kelly was back, how Notre Dame was back after that late run in the season. I mean, you beat some teams, but none of those were flashy. But this year you start out.
This Notre Dame team was unbelievable. And to start the season 0-2, that says a lot about what the coach is doing.
Yep.
Their loss against South Florida was unacceptable.
Turnovers killed them in that game.
From the Big East, it was mediocre last year, kind of, and you let them beat you up in your own stadium.
Yep.
And being ranked 16, it's supposed to be a big year for Notre Dame. They're 0-2. They have got to win, but I don't think they will. They're going to go 0-3. I just don't think this team.
I'm going with Michigan State too. I know they lost a couple key parts on the offensive side, but Kirk Cousins is still there, and he's still an amazing quarterback. And they've held their own, and I think they're going to hold their own again this week. Now let's get on to Texas and UCLA. Now Texas question mark at quarterback position right now. They're going to go with Case McCoy over Garrett Gilbert. Garrett Gilbert pulled after a god awful performance against BYU last week.
And Garrett Gilbert, he is just no good. I'm sorry. Case McCoy is the starting quarterback. We'll see how he does against UCLA. But I'm going to go with Texas. And if Case McCoy has a pretty good game, that's the quarterback for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Caller at one, Garrett Gilbert, you better hope that he has a bad first half. You better get it together.
Yeah, but Case McCoy getting the start, but UCLA, not the team they thought they were going to be under Rick Neuheisel, and Rick Neuheisel's he's getting fired. He's on the hot seat. He's like a bunch of other coaches in college football right now. For example, you got guys like Mark Richt starting 0-2. People are calling for his head. Brian Kelly, they're already calling for him, even though he's in his second year. It's just amazing what.
The thing about Brian Kelly is he should have stayed at Cincinnati. He had a great program going there, and now look what happened.
Yep.
What's going on with Cincinnati? He left them for a Notre Dame team that I don't know when this program is going to be national hype again, but not this year.
But I'm going with Texas as well. Utah and BYU now. Last year it would have been a conference matchup. Now they both had their separate ways. Utah to the Pac-12. BYU, the independent. Heaps has looked very well the past 2 weeks. Barely winning Ole Miss, and it's nonetheless an SEC school.
Well, the heartbreaking loss against Texas. You know, I think that hurt them. I think they beat Utah. I expected them to beat Texas. Really thought they were going to. Failed. I think they beat Utah.
I do too.
Because I think Utah is just not really that good this year.
They lost a lot of key parts.
Situated in the Pac-12. I think it's a win for BYU.
Yep. Here we are now down to our final 4 games of our picks. Arizona State, Illinois now. This one is very good. Arizona State coming off a huge win last week against Missouri in overtime. Now going to another very tough school on the road, Illinois with Nathan Shieldhouse. But I just think Arizona State, you got a 6'8" quarterback, Brock Osweiler. You got a solid running game in Cameron Marshall. And then you got a monster on the defensive side of Vontaze Burfict. I just think Arizona State comes out of there with a W, with Michaela Schur not being there to run the ball.
Stopped playing football last week, and I'm really surprised they got away with that victory because they had a pretty good little lead. Let it go. They got the win though. They did, and but I think that they're going to go down against Illinois. I'm going to go with Illinois with the upset.
Huh? All right, moving on. West Virginia looking very good under Dana Holgorsen and his new offense coming from Oklahoma State to West Virginia. Geno Smith looking like could be an early Heisman candidate. Taking on a Maryland team that did play very well against Miami.
I like that Maryland team. I like the way they looked against Miami. That's why I'm going to go with them over West Virginia.
Well,
I have a good feeling about this Maryland team.
I have a good feeling about this West Virginia team because if West Virginia, now here's the problem with West Virginia, they cannot get caught looking ahead because as you know, LSU is coming into Morgantown next week, so
Yeah,
that'll be huge.
It needs to be a must-win for West Virginia. You want to have a nice little cushion, but I think they're going to go down. I think Maryland has something to prove. You know, I don't think they got their message across at Miami. I think they're going to get it across this weekend.
I think West Virginia comes out. Geno Smith is going to throw under 300 yards and go over 100 yards rushing, and I'm picking West Virginia big. Moving on to the battle for the Governor's Cup, the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, this is against Louisville, and these are 2 different teams right now. Kentucky, they've won 2 games, but they've looked awful in those 2 games.
Well, the first game, or the first couple games, the first 2 games, offense was totally out of sync. I think they got a little bit of something last week in the second half. Morgan Newton showed that he can throw it when he wanted to. I think Kentucky wins the game. Louisville's just not really impressive.
Louisville, I think they are weak. Charlie
putting up 21 points against Murray State.
And then getting beat by Florida International. Florida International is a very good team with T.Y. Hilton, but I do think Kentucky wins this game as well and beats them for the first consecutive year. Now to my game of the week. Oklahoma, Florida State in Tallahassee. Now, Oklahoma embarrassed Florida State last season. Will Oklahoma prove they deserve that top ranking, or will Florida State shock them?
I think Florida State shocks them. They've been FSU. I love you, Landry Jones, but I'm going to go with Florida State. It's going to be a great game, but I think Florida State pulls it out in the end.
Well, E.J. Manuel, very good quarterback. He looked kind of shaky first week, but he looked a lot better last week against Louisiana Monroe. It looks like Burt Reed and the wide receivers are coming through, and that defense is just a 5-tool defense. You got great players all around the 5-tool defense, but how is that 5-tool defense going to step up to one of the top offenses in the country? That's why I'm going with the #1 Oklahoma Sooners this week. You got Landry Jones, leading passer in the NCAA last year, one of the best receivers in the college game right now, Ryan Broyles, and you got a walk-on, Dominique Whaley, coming in. And I think Oklahoma, it'll be a close game, 38-31 in a high-scoring bout.
We talked about Oklahoma, and you said this team's not going to they're not going to run the table.
I don't think they will either, but I just think they get past this one.
This is the game that they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And it's going to cripple them. And I think they lose 2 more games in the Big 12. That's what I think.
That's your bold prediction. All right. Now, that's Jay's bold prediction. My bold prediction is Mark Richt will not get fired this year. He doesn't deserve that. He's done a great job at Georgia. They got a couple games that they can win coming up. They can win the rest of their games. So that's
against Boise State was sloppy.
Yeah.
It was a sloppy game, and I don't think we were prepared, and that has a lot to do with Rick. But you got them prepared against South Carolina. Had we not turned the ball over,
that's all for this week.
they win this game big.